Hello, we're your friends from the Bilboo Theater Company, and we'd like to give you a few tips on preparing scripts for worship services. Today we're going to be talking about monologues. Now, monologues are those scripts that have just one character. Only one person's doing all the talking, only one person is carrying all the action. But there's some misconceptions about monologues and what they actually are and what they are not. Now, the Lent series itself does contain a lot of monologues, and the 2017 version is no different. So we're actually going to be using one of those as an example to kind of help us through this exercise. Now, in preparation for a monologue, it is best to be so familiar with the material, the words that are on the page, that you are as close to word for word memorized as you can. What this does is this really helps you to be connected with the material and what it's saying. Since it's just one person's thoughts, one person's words, you're really carrying all of the text, all of the meaning, and really being so familiar with it that you don't have to look at it is going to help you make that connection not only to what that person is saying and doing, but also then your audience and how you can communicate that emotion to them. And then also allows you to do some movement if you need to help communicate that, so that you're not tied to a script or a stand or a pulpit or any of those other things that we might use to cheat, even a teleprompter perhaps. But once you've got your character lines down, you really look at them to kind of parse out what is the motivation. Because really with just one character in the scene, that's all you've got. Is what is this person motivated to do? So you're going to have to ask a few questions. The first question is, who are you? You know who you are. You kind of puts your words in perspective. So the purpose of this exercise, Brian is going to play Simon of Cyrene. Now, we know from the biblical account of what he did and what he was all about, and we can go through and find out a little bit more about him that might help us in our preparation. But we know for this purpose that he was present at the crucifixion of Jesus, and he was the one who likely carried his cross for him. So going in to prepare, that's kind of what he's coming at. Now, also, we need to ask ourselves, who is he speaking to? There's no other character in the scene, but that doesn't mean he's talking to himself necessarily, out loud to himself. But many of us do. We will kind of have our thoughts going on in our head, and he's just kind of saying his out loud, so perhaps he's talking to a different version of himself to help him process, to help him kind of understand what's going here. He's alone with his thoughts, so we're kind of hearing him think out loud. In other cases, there might be an unseen character off of the stage where we might not see, but in this particular case, it's just him. In other monologues, like another one that's in this Lent series based on the widow, she is actually praying. So the other person on the other end of hearing this monologue would be God. She is speaking in prayer to him, which actually leads us to the next question is, why are we speaking at all? That text will help us understand what is it that this character wants to communicate, what is it that they have to say, either to themselves or to us in the purpose of this script. Now, in order to have an effective performance, now that Brian's got all of this under his belt, he's got to know how to separate the character from the actor, right? Because we know Brian, but Brian's not going to be speaking as Brian. He's going to be speaking as Simon of Cyrene, right? So how are we going to help the audience not see Brian, but see Brian speaking through the person or Simon speaking through the person of Brian, really? He might be wearing a biblical costume because Simon is a biblical character. If he were from a different era or a different occupation, he might have something that suggests that, helps the audience not see Brian, but see his character is going to be. He's also going to use more conversational speech. Nothing too formal, nothing too polished, unless that's really what his character is about. Because he's going to be giving us a lot of information, but we don't want it to feel like it's sort of a lecture. So the Simon of Cyrene monologue is part of the Good Friday series, and there's a number of monologues in that one. So it gives an opportunity for multiple actors to dig in and take on different characters. Brian's going to give us a little bit of an excerpt of this.
I had never been so close to a crucifixion. I wish I hadn't been. Even more, I wish my boys hadn't been there to see it with me. The Romans shouted to the crowd, "Take a look at your king now!" The soldiers began to throw dice for his clothing. Some in the crowd wept. Others hurled insults at him. The religious leaders stood with their arms crossed, a strange expression of satisfaction on their faces. And then Jesus took a deep breath. Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing. I would never forget those words. A dying man, tortured and crucified, praying that God would forgive his tormentors. What kind of a man would do such a thing?